Hey, everybody. Welcome to Roger and Me, aka Roger Ebert and Me, a movie review podcast that's also a tribute to Siskel and Ebert, hosted by myself, Brett Arnold, and film critic Mark Dujsik of MarkReviewsMovies.com. What are we? We are a podcast. We are a at the movies-esque podcast where we aim to cover every new movie that comes out every Friday, whether it comes out on streaming or in theaters. We much prefer theaters, obviously, but we will cover them wherever you find them. And we're going to cover them in the format, obviously, pioneered by Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert. That's what we're here to do. We're the only guide to new release movies you'll ever need. Mark, what's going on?
Not much. Just keep me busy.
Perfect answer. I can tell you why Mark's been busy. I covered a reasonable 7 movies this week, and that's what you'll hear about on the show. Mark covered a less reasonable 11 movies this week, more reasonable than last week's 14, I believe it was. And hopefully next week will be a little more reasonable, but you never know. Mark's doing the work at markreviewsmovies.com. A few more that I didn't get to are over there if you're curious. But for this week, we have a few high-profile ones and a few indie ones, all worth discussing, and I'm very excited to do it. Why belabor the point? Let's get right into it without delay. The only delay I will give is please rate and review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. It really helps the show surface for people when they search for it, and it makes us feel nice and tingly inside. You can also send us a text message right in the description of the show. There's a button you press, and you can text us whatever you want. People are using it in fun ways. No one has hurled abuse at us yet, which is nice. So you can be the first to do that if you want to. But I hope you're nice about it. But Mark and I are going to get right into it with Jeff Nichols's The Bikeriders. Written and directed by Jeff Nichols. It was a movie that was made one place and then shunted off to another studio and is now out in theaters via, I believe, Focus Features. Here is a trailer for The Bikeriders with an insane cast that you will hear about in a second. Here's the trailer.
I'm thinking of starting a riding club.
Why? All those clubs do is sit around talking about motorcycles.
That's what we do.
You don't belong nowhere else, so they belong together. But you're the man in charge.
I'm Johnny. We're the Randos.
I'm Benny. I like you guys.
Boyfriends are getting into trouble.
What the hell were you thinking back there?
Nothing. I saw you scoring off with them guys.
My expectations for this were pretty low because it played at festivals and people were pretty mean to it. And obviously, a studio selling off a movie doesn't inspire confidence, generally speaking. And I should let Mark start because he has the more common opinion, or what I thought was the common opinion, which is that this movie's not very good. I thought it was good, not great, but good enough. So, Mark, take it away. What is this movie, and why is it not up to snuff?
It is based on a photography book that was made in the 60s and late 70s or early 70s, about a real motorcycle gang in Chicago. This is a fictionalized account of that gang, and it's just the story of that gang and its rise to prominence, and then kind of fall into more criminality than usual, what they expected it to be. It's a pretty common story, and that's where it lost me, is just because I don't really think it has much insight into the narrative it's trying to spin. But I mean, I'll tell you what, the cast is really solid, at least in terms of the actors in it, and the names of them. The performances, I think, are a bit hit or miss.
Cartoony?
I think we'll
Yeah.
get into that.
What was the word you used?
What was the word?
I'm
Sorry.
asking. I missed you. The word you used to describe the acting.
Oh, hit or miss.
Hit or miss. I thought you said
Hit or
perilous,
miss.
and I was like, oh,
Oh,
interesting.
no.
Okay.
Perilous.
Hit or miss.
No. Hit or miss.
Yeah.
Hit or miss.
So I really wanted to give Jodie Comer shit for the most intense Chicago accent you've ever heard, but
Except
I've
it's more
heard
Minnesota.
Yeah, it's very Minnesota is what I also was thinking. But I heard someone say, who was at a screening with Nichols, and maybe you can find it online somewhere, but Nichols played a tape of the woman's voice that she was imitating, and apparently she absolutely nails it to an insane degree that you're like, holy shit, I can't believe that's not her. So it seems cartoonish and over the top, but I thought it was very lived in. Once I thought it was lived in a way that made me laugh at first and think it was over the top. But now that I read that, I'm like, I'm impressed with that now, if that's true. Like, that's a crazy, goofy accent to keep up the whole time. And she did a good job.
Yeah, there's nothing saying that you can't move from, Minnesota to Chicago at some point in your life. And that's probably what happened. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm fine with the accents. I'm not so whatever.
It's just funny when everyone's already doing accents when the movie starts, and it's like, wow, this is a lot of accents. And then Tom Hardy enters like 10 minutes later, and you're like, oh, now the king of accents is here. Let's go. Okay.
And Tom Hardy is doing his own thing as Tom Hardy does. And I'm fine with that because that's the character. The character is a guy who is kind of playing up this concept of what the leader of a motorcycle gang is going to look like and sound like. He bases himself off of watching Brando and the Wild One on TV one day.
Great scene.
That's the gag. Yeah, that's the gag. And that's what I did like about the movie is those little details of like, I suppose it's like sociological about how this gang formed and why they formed and what they're trying to do and how they model themselves in a certain way based on expectations of what the gang is supposed to be. It's so meticulous in so many details. And then the story is so shallow. That's where the disconnect is for me.
That's totally fair. And I think I came in knowing it was like I think the review I read said it was like Goodfellas, with motorcycle cosplay. And I'm like, that is kind of what's going on. And I didn't mind it because it delivered for me as like a Goodfellas rise and fall crime narrative. It like worked within that parameter, even if it wasn't like breaking new ground. And I mean, I really did enjoy the arc of we started this motorcycle club as a social thing, and then it eventually became biker gangs that were violent and murderous. And it was like, as someone on Letterboxd put it, everything was going great in my criminal motorcycle club until some new criminals joined, and then things stopped being great. Like, that's the premise of the movie. And it's very silly, I guess, if you think about it that way. But I found it to be fun, and I've got to give Jeff Nichols credit. I've never understood the phenomenon of like motorcycles. Like, I think it's stupid and dangerous, and obviously like I just don't understand it. And this movie made me get closer than I ever have to understanding it, just by the way he films and directs these people on motorcycles. They're so loud. They're so cool. There's a shot early on with Jodie Comer and Austin Butler riding together, and they cuts to like the pack behind them. And I suddenly understood the allure of being on a bike like that. And I was like, it's all the enveloping nature of it all. I understood it. I understood why someone would run off with someone like that in like a Bonnie and Clyde style scenario or whatever, or Badlands style scenario. So I just was kind of caught up in it, and the goofy performance, or the, over the top accent work and all that stuff. It's just men playing dress up as Marlon Brando, as you say, and then kind of getting in over their head, and then it's over. And there's this line that kind of is the whole thing, which is, Tom Hardy, I wish I remembered the way he talked. Sometimes you give something all your attention and care, and it's just gonna do what it's gonna do. That probably wasn't him at all, but I just appreciated that it was this very simple story of guys getting in over their heads, and that's all you're watching. And you're right, there are great little details. Like, did you also like the beginning, the way Jodie Comer introduces the story, and then goes like, 5 weeks later we were married. Like, that was a great.
Yeah, I really like that little anecdote, and the way that she just comes in is completely disgusted by all the other bikers and is so uncomfortable there, and then she just sees Austin Butler at the pool table like, oh, never mind, I'm okay with everything that is happening right now. It's really funny because you said that the appeal of the motorcycles, all it is just one thing to hook you into something, and you're like, yeah, I'm on board with this no matter how uncomfortable I am. And that happens, and the way that it just kind of sneaks up on these characters, I did like all of that. I think it's interesting in terms of the psychology of the characters, but again, I kept me at such a remove because it's, what's the story here? There's no insight beyond just like, this is what happened and this is how it happened. I don't think the framing device, having Comer's character and Mike Feist playing the journalist who did the photo book, I don't think that works. I think that just kind of keeps everything at a remove from getting us involved when you have, Hardy and Butler. And I mean, the cast, we didn't even talk about the cast who else who's in the motorcycle game. Michael Shannon, Norman Reedus. I'm trying to think who else. There's a bunch
When
of other
Norman
actors.
Reedus shows up with those fucking teeth, I was like,
Yes.
oh my God, this guy's a
Yep.
scumbum for real.
like-
This is a real guy. Yeah, it just feels like, oh yeah, they found just a real motorcycle guy to be in this. And I was like, took me 2 seconds to be like, oh, that's
To
just
realize,
Norman Reedus.
wait, yeah, this is an actual actor in Hollywood working.
Yeah,
This
that's just Daryl Dixon or whatever his name is on The Walking Dead,
Yeah.
which is now the name of a TV show.
Yeah, you have all of these really interesting character actors thrown into these roles, and they're all good. I forgot about Emery Cohen, who's a cockroach,
Cockroach.
because
Yep.
he likes to eat bugs as a gag, but actually he likes to eat bugs.
Yeah,
I
and
love
every
that
time
line.
he
I love the
yeah.
delivery of that line.
And every time he just kind of like is justifying it, like, well, they're actually not so bad if you do it
Yeah.
this way or whatever.
I mean, it's a gag, it's a funny, except I kind of like it too. So,
Yeah. It's funny. Like I understand what you're saying, and I can't argue with you about the story, but like because it set itself up as like this movie is based on a picture book, like I wasn't expecting much in terms of story. So like I was fine with with what it gave me. And I found it fascinating, even a fictionalized tale of like the start of biker gang movements and how that happened. Like I'm sure it's not very accurate or anything like that, but as this very specific story of this Chicago gang and et cetera, I don't know. I found it completely engaging, and again, it might be a going in with low expectations thing because I was expecting it to be bad based on the buzz, and I was like, Jeff Nichols is a good filmmaker. Why is everyone ragging on this movie? And I've always liked Jeff Nichols' work. If you're unfamiliar with the name, what would people know him from? Like Take Shelter is one that I always really Mud, Midnight Special is probably I wanted to say the most recent, but it's not. There's Loving was good. Yeah, he's a good writer director, and this feels like his most mainstream thing. It definitely is, and I think it works more than it doesn't, with the limitations of like this. As I said, it's a movie based on a picture book that isn't like story driven, so they kind of have to fill in the gap, and they fill in the gaps with like a story you're familiar with, like the Goodfellas arc, and just kind of give you that. And I think it works because of the performers and, as I said, the well-directedness and making me feel like I'm a part of the gang and how loud it was. I thought it was a good time. The classic like 3-star pass that, I could, whatever you give it, I will respect and understand. One of those 3 stars for me.
I'll give it a 2 stars. And yeah,
2 stars. I'm just
yeah. You said you respected.
Yeah. All right, I'll respect and understand.
I
You're
know,
right.
I know.
You're right. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
It's just one of those. I think kind of having that sense of looking at it as a journalist in a way doesn't do it many favors. Like taking that idea of a journalistic photo book
Mike
and
Feist
transferring.
Well, yeah. I mean, you could argue that's like the material is inherently limited by that, and that's fair too.
Yeah.
And Mike Feist, I didn't know he was in the movie, and then he was barely in it because he's just a device. He's like, Almost Famous. What's the kid's from Almost Famous name? Like, it's like that kid at least is the fucking. He's the lead character in that movie, whereas Mike Feist doesn't do anything in this movie.
Yeah.
He sits there with the microphone, and you go, oh yeah, Mike Feist is in this. Why isn't he talking more? So yeah, I see where you're coming from, and I hope people err up more on my side than yours and enjoy it, and I think people should see it. I would be glad to see this movie do well, even though I'm sure it's a too small a movie to gain traction, even with that cast. Yeah, I'm still surprised. I'm kind of surprised by the reception being so negative. Maybe it's one of those things where it's like my little bubble is negative. Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes has got it at 82. So I guess it's like
I was surprised.
Like.
See, I was surprised by that because I'm in my little bubble of my head, thinking this isn't that good, and then suddenly, oh, this is actually being well received.
It's just a good little mood piece about a time in America that it isn't anymore.
That is no
I
longer
enjoyed
the case.
And
was it ever like that?
The accents, Chicago, as Chicagoans, we have to shout out. I love a Chicago movie. We love to point and say, hey, look, it's Chicago. Very fun. All right, let's move on to the next movie of the week. I believe it's in limited release now and going wider, maybe next week. This is Yorgos Lanthimos's kind of surprise follow-up, I guess, to Poor Things. the trailer came out very shortly after Poor Things run in theaters and its Oscar run or whatever else. And yeah, here's a trailer for Kinds of Kindness, starring Jesse Plemons, Emma Stone, and others. Boy, do I wish I liked this movie more, but I wasn't into Poor Things. I know you and everyone else on Earth were huge on Poor Things and The Favorite, two movies I don't like, but I do like Yorgos's earlier stuff, which is arguably what this is trying to be, like a more confrontational, fucked up, not as mainstream movie. And yet I still found it as annoying as his more recent stuff, for reasons we'll get into. Mark, you also were mixed on this, so why don't you walk me through what it is?
It's a great question. Right on the face of it, it's an anthology movie, so it's 3 short stories kind of put together, just one right after the other, and that's it. And it's in Lanthimos's weird oddball style of storytelling and
Where
filmmaking. And
the funniest thing a person can do is dance to a song. That is the funniest
yeah,
thing
apparently
in Yorgos's catalog at this point, and it drives me fucking nuts. And it keeps happening here too. Anyway, continue.
Anyway, so uh, this is a tough one because this is always hard when it's just an anthology, because it would be nice to be able to say, like, these are connected by some theme, these are connected by some plot element, they're connected by some character, and they are, I guess, technically connected by a character, a silent character who is only initialed. I think it's RMF. Yeah, it's RMF.
The guy, who's like his name is the name of each of the different segments, but he's like a tertiary character.
Yeah, he's a background character in one of them. He's a guy he's a background character in all of them. And that's the connection, and that feels like the only connection between any of these stories. I was so caught up in the first one. The first one, I think, is the best.
Me too. I agree.
It's about a guy and his played by Jesse Plemons, and his boss played by Willem Dafoe. Those 2 actors and a lot of the other ones are across all 3 of them. And the boss has complete control over this guy's life, and you don't realize just how much control he has until you realize what happens when that boss is out of the picture, and you see this guy completely collapse, even trying to make the simplest of decisions, like what to drink at a bar. Yep.
Yeah.
It's so good. It is such a good story. It's performed so well. I was caught up in it, and then that second one happens. And I forgot what it was until we were watching that trailer. And I'm like,
I had to. Right. I looked it up because, like, the first one is about a guy whose life is controlled by his boss to, like, down to the minute detail, and the second one is the guy who's like his wife is back after being lost at sea, and he's convinced that she's been replaced by like
some sort of
an alien or something, or a doppelganger. And he just keeps making that doppelganger, or so he thinks, just do more and more fucked up things to like prove that she loves him, I guess, is the idea of that one. And then the third one is
the cult.
The cult.
The water cult.
The cult where they're looking for a girl who can heal the dead or something. Is that what that one is?
Yeah, resurrect the dead. There's apparently some sort of prophecy or something about twins, and one of them can resurrect the dead. So Clemens and Stone's character are trying to find that person, traveling around the country. Stone's character has a husband and a kid at her home that she has abandoned, and so that comes into play. I think it comes back a little bit with the third one, a little bit.
It lost me it loses me at some point in the middle of point. And then by the end, I'm just kind of like, I was definitely annoyed with it, or I guess would be the word. I was just like hands in the air, like I've given up on enjoying, like trying to piece together, like what the connecting thread is, because it's really more like it's, variations on a theme, and the theme seems to be control or love, and how control and love intersect, all these things, but it's never going to be like an easy tied in a bow more mainstream movie where it's like, this is what they all mean, goodbye. Like, it just leaves you ruminating, which is arguably that's what art should do. It's good, but I just think it's so slight, this one, where it's like 3 hours of him hammering, like in each one it feels like the same points being hammered for an hour, and then it's over, and it just felt repetitive and kind of annoying to me. I keep saying annoying. Clearly, I
You
am
keep saying
annoyed.
annoying.
Yeah.
I wasn't really annoyed by it because I was at least anticipating there to be weirdness and shock and all
Yeah.
of that stuff. I'm anticipating that. And you know, what I mean, you brought it up. I love Poor Things. And
Yeah.
that is also full of surprises and shocks, and it's intentionally doing that. This one's doing it, but I don't think it has a backbone to really go for it because it's just three half-baked ideas, although I will give the first one more credit and say that's like three-quarters baked. I think that is
Yeah.
pretty close to a complete story with a beginning and end, with characters that are interesting, with an idea that is intriguing, and that plays out in a way that makes sense based on all of that. The other two, I'm still not sold completely on them. And so I cannot recommend it, even though I do think there's a lot of funny stuff in the second one and in the third one. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to pay attention to and to watch. And I think the performances are really good.
Oh,
Being able
yeah.
to see Willem
Yeah.
Dafoe go from the controlling boss in the first one to like the most mundane father-in-law you could imagine in the second one, and then
Yeah.
a charismatic cult leader in the third one. So just seeing these actors being able
Yeah.
to extend their range in one sitting, you're going to watch this in one sitting and see these actors be able to pull off what they can do. It's as that kind of an experiment is interesting too, but I don't know. I'm not saying that an anthology movie has to be connected in some way, but I do think that at the bottom, bare minimum, you want some consistency of quality here, and I don't think that the second two stories have the same level of detail and quality as the first one, and that's too bad because there's good elements in all of them, but only that first
Yeah.
one actually pulls it off.
Yeah, it just feels like it's kind of on purpose abrasive towards the viewer in a way where it's like, you try to figure this out. We're not going to help you at all. And like, again, that's challenging cinema is good. For the difference where like, it feels like Yorgos is fucking with you at a certain point. And I do feel like that about him at other points in his career. And sometimes I'm in the mood for that and sometimes I'm not. It's so interesting to me. I think it was Katie Rife, a Chicago film critic, actually, who pointed out, fellow Chicago film critic, who pointed out that she feels that lately Yorgos Lanthimos saves his aggressive stylization for his more accessible scripts like The Favorite and Poor Things, and keeps the style clean for the deadpan weirdness. And I thought that was an interesting note because I did feel that way. I was like waiting for the camera to do weird stuff, and the movie's very static. Like it just is a well shot, but not in that overly stylized way. I do think Plemons gives terrific performances that are, varied and different. Everyone who's in it does. So yeah, there's like things to like about it for sure. But yeah, I found it, tough to wrap your arms around, I guess would be what I would say. And at 2.5 hours, I needed more from it and it wasn't giving me enough. And I do think it just kind of peters it. Like the first one's so good and the second one is interesting, but like, I don't know. It was lacking for me. It just felt a little slight. I didn't dislike
Second
it.
one is two different ideas playing out
Yeah.
too. Like the first one is about the wife being missing and how he's missing her, and when he wants to play that tape with his
Yeah.
friends. It's a really funny moment.
Very
And then
funny.
suddenly it switches gears again, and it's about this other thing, and it's whiplash even within the narrative of that short. It's very strange to have that sense. You have that sense of whiplash just from going from one story to the next, and then you're in the middle of this one story, and suddenly everything shifts gears in a different way.
I think that gag was ruined for me by reading some Letterboxd review or something. Something clued me into like what was going to happen in that one, and maybe that's why I thought that joke was just like, I was waiting for it. I guess is why it didn't work. Didn't work as well for me. But
I did not know it was coming, so I thought it was.
Well, that's just kind of that could be like a good point to criticize if I wanted to, and be like, that's like the height of humor to him is like, wouldn't it be funny if these characters were acting that way? Could you believe that? Like, it's just like, I don't find him that funny anymore. Like his like juxtaposition of like, you think this is, these people are type A, but what if they were actually type B? And it's like, yeah, okay. It's just not, I think it's one of those things where I used to think he was provocative and a provocateur in a way that the movies are actually asking interesting things. And now it just feels like he's being like poking people around to try to get a reaction. And yeah, it's a 2.5 star experience still. I'm still taken with it in a lot of ways. and I maybe will watch it again eventually. I did watch Poor Things more than once. I always want to like his stuff. But yeah, it's missing something for me despite the good performances. And then when each one ends with just a dance number, it's like all his little quirks that rub me the wrong way just keep coming back. And I'm like, yeah, okay. He thinks it's funny because she's dancing now. Like, I don't get what the joke is here. Anyway, 2.5 stars for me on Kinds of Kindness. Where are you on that?
2.5 as well. Yeah, we're both in the same boat, even though I thought you might like it a little bit less than I did. But nope,
No,
we're both
like,
there.
yeah, I like there are large stretches of it that I'm really enjoying. And then there are large stretches of it where I'm just like, okay, I get it. It's like off-putting on purpose. And that it's like when you try to it's like how you can't make a Sharknado to me is like not a real bad horror movie because they're trying for it to be bad. Like that's kind of the same energy I get when he's trying to be a provocateur, and it's just like, yeah, okay, you're trying too hard. But hey, it works. It's gonna work for a lot of people. So don't be too discouraged by our 2.5 star review. I hope. Let's keep this rolling. Thelma, starring June Squibb. Here's the trailer.
What's your plan for the day?
The usual. Hello?
Grandma,
Danny? You sound so strange.
I'm in jail.
Oh my God.
Mail $10,000 to this address.
$10,000?
How did you think this was real?
Mom, you thought it was real too.
Oh my God. She was very convincing.
Well, she was scared, your mother. We were all scared.
I wasn't quite as scared, just for the record.
You gotta tell the police.
They're no use.
They contact people at random using telephone listings and social networking sites.
Like Facebook?
Sure, by Facebook.
Well, shouldn't Zuckerberg be able to fix this?
I don't want to damn anything with faint praise, but the word cute was invented to describe this movie. It is so cute. I want to recommend it to everyone in my life, my parents, my sister, anyone. It's just a cute little movie that is inoffensive, and it feels like it's like any quadrant of person could enjoy this. It's just a delightful movie with June Squibb, who's like a late in life character actor or actor who's never really been a lead, and she gets a leading role here. And the role is, I shit you not, the premise of this movie is the fucking same as The Beekeeper. It is The Beekeeper. She gets swindled on the phone by whatever you call that kind of scam. Not a phishing scam, but like someone calls her and tells her your son's in danger. Wire me 10 grand, or pretends to be the son and says, I'm in danger. Give me 10 grand. Very common scam that happens all the time. People fall for it all the time. So it's a senior citizen falling for that scam. And instead of enlisting the help of a Jason Statham style beekeeper, Thelma, who is out to prove she can handle herself as an older woman who doesn't want to be put in a home, who can, I can fend for myself. So it's that type of character, an older woman deciding that she needs to get that $10,000 that she spent on the scam back and going about it herself. And it's just cute and self-aware about the action genre and the tropes. It's constantly referencing Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise, and doing his own stunts. It just is a movie that is playful about the action genre that it's like not quite. It's not parodying it. It's an homage to it. But the way that the homage comes about is through satire or jokes about tropes in action movies. Like the scene where in an action movie, there's a hacker that hacks in a computer. In this movie, it's Thelma trying to use the computer with her grandson's help. And he's just trying to get her to click out of pop-up ads. And it's genuinely so funny. Doesn't she say, I'm in at some point? Like it's
look for the X. It's not always obvious.
Yeah. Look for the X. It's not always obvious. What did you say? What did they do to that? There's a baby. You're like, what did they do to that baby? Like, there's like some weird ad. I don't know. It was very funny. And all those little details about a senior and how a grandson would help her, very lived in and real. If anything, it's like a little stretch thin with trying to be the Thelma narrative. And then like, it's trying to give her grandson a narrative about him not feeling right in the world, just the way that she doesn't feel right in the world. And she's giving him encouragement too. And it dovetails together fine. And I walk away going, it's cute. But I guess if I had a criticism, it's just like, it's a one note thing, but it plays that one note really well. And I enjoyed it. But it's one of those like slight 3 out of 5. That's also a 3 out of 4 for me, where I didn't dislike it in any way, but it is a little one note, I guess. Well, what did you think of it?
I think it has couple more notes, but they're not as obvious. It's delightful. It's delightful.
I didn't
June
even
Squibb-
mention Richard Roundtree,
Yeah.
who's fantastic.
Yeah, I know. Oh yeah, I would have brought. I'm going to bring him up for
Please,
sure.
go
So
ahead.
June Squibb playing, she's 93, I think, when this got made, or she's 93 now. She's playing, or she's 94 now. She's playing a 93-year-old, and just trying to have independence that she has never ever had before. And it approaches that idea really sincerely too, while it's being funny with the action bit and it's being sweet with the relationship with the grandson. It's doing all that. It's actually looking at what it is like for a senior
Yeah.
to want to have independence and
Yes.
to feel babied and coddled by everyone in the world around them, and wanting to not be like that. And so you have Squibb's character doing that, and then you have the late Richard Roundtree. I think this is going to be his last movie performance. I think.
Yes. Which
And he
is
might
like
have filmed.
it works poetically in that way where it's a movie about
It does.
aging and stuff, and it works nicely. It adds something
It
to it.
really,
Yeah.
and he's so good in this. He's been really
Terrific.
good recently. I mean, he's always been good, but he's been really good recently too. And so
I love a
it's a
late
shame.
actor turn in like a way
Yeah.
that like you would never expect us to be like the guy who played Shaft is like so good, but like he's
Yeah.
fantastic. He's
Well,
terrific.
he's always been good. He was
Well, yeah,
Shaft.
I know, but you know what I mean, like in like
but
a
in a different
dramatic
way. Yes,
yes,
in a
yes,
different way.
in a
Yes.
tearjerkery way or whatever.
Yeah, but he's really good here too. As he's an older man who has decided that he is going to live in a home because he likes that sense of security and having people to help him and having a community around him to do things with, and not just be like Squibb's character and sit around doing needlepoint. I think that's what it's called when you, yeah. So watching game shows and all that stuff. So he gets to have that little community, and they have these little arguments back and forth about whether or not it's worthwhile going into a home, or if you lose that independence that you could have. It's really smart in that way, in that it's
You're right.
having an actual serious discussion about older people living and wanting to live their own lives, and where are the limits of that, in
You're right.
practicality.
I was underselling it. You're right. It does do
Yeah,
all that.
it's doing good stuff. It's doing good stuff. I'm less sold on all the action movie homage stuff. I think some of the
Well,
gags are funny, but they're kind of
yeah.
obvious after a bit.
I guess that's what I
Um,
was getting at. Like it just becomes like the visual language of action movies will be made fun of at every point, and like the scooter stuff, like that she's in a car chase, but she's on a scooter, and it's shot like a car chase. I did
Yep.
like the hearing aid frequency thing, so she
Yes.
could talk. That was the
That was
most
cool.
genius one, where she
Yes.
uses the hearing aid frequency to talk, so a nearby guy can't hear them. Really clever stuff, and
Yeah.
I guess the grandson arc feeling forced was another note I said. But again, I do think it threads the needle fine by the end, so like it didn't bother me. But like it does it when you're watching the movie. I did feel like, well, now we have to cut back to the grandson to hear his bullshit. Like, but it threads the needle fine. The assisted living stuff and her missing her dead husband and all her friends are dead. It takes it seriously, and it takes that stuff. It takes the right thing seriously and takes the other stuff. The comedy works too. It doesn't have to take everything seriously. Yeah, I thought it was a very enjoyable, easy to recommend movie where without June Squibb in the like doing an amazing performance as a woman of her age, or if of any age, like without that performance, I don't know what this movie is. Like she really makes it, and as does the relationship with Richard Roundtree, and Parker Posey shows up, which is nice. Malcolm McDowell shows up. A lot of random people show up. There's one line I wrote down that is so stupid, but it made me laugh. There's the part where they go to Richard Roundtree's assisted living home, and the people are telling they're like, he has it because he's doing a play. He's performing as Daddy Warbucks and Annie at the retirement home. And when they're looking for him, they go, well, he has a show tonight, And the dad's like, how would we know that? Like, why would I know that he has a show at the retirement home? Like, such a stupid little line, but it made me laugh really hard. That was
also, I like,
yeah.
Was it also, doesn't like Greg's character, like in that same conversation later on, go like, well, what time's curtain? Or something.
Yeah, yes,
like
yes,
he suddenly becomes very invested in having the performance go on.
It's a great arc.
It's
a very cute movie, and I don't mean that meanly. I think it's like the nicest thing I could say about it is it's very cute, and I think everyone should see it. It's a very solid 3-star movie for me.
Yep, 3 stars for me too. It's a lot of fun.
All right, now let's take a left turn into no fun land. Let's talk about Green Border. a good movie, to be sure, but it is a tough subject. And Mark and I have had this conversation we're about to have before, for sure, about similar movies. So we'll see if we can enliven it up again. Here is Green Border.
من بيلاروسيا على بولونيا ومن هنيك بوشنا لعند عمكم بالسويد.
رح يوصلكم على احسن معبر حدودي ولا تنسوا الشاب وصلته اجرته كلها.
شو هاد؟
Nie jest propaganda, to jest realne zagrożenie. To nie są ludzie, to są żywe pociski.
Stać końca! No!
Muszą gdzieś dochodzić do siebie w bezpiecznym miejscu. Masz na myśli uchodźców? Osoby uchodźcze?
Why don't you, I'll give you the envious task of explaining what this movie's all about.
It's a tough one, but it's definitely worth watching. I'll get that out of the way right away. It is about refugees from Syria trying to get into the European Union to escape the hellhole of, the Syrian civil war and all that stuff that is going on. And it's about this other crisis, the other than the refugee crisis, but the crisis between Belarus and Poland at the time. So the entry point that the family has arranged is in Belarus. They'll cross from Belarus into Poland across what's called a green border. So it's a forest. It's just a wide expanse of forest that where the borders between the two countries are. And so they get in, and suddenly they get into Poland, and then in Poland, border crossing guards find them and push them right back to Belarus, and then they have to get back into Poland. So all of that is going on. That's one perspective of the movie. The other perspectives include one of the border guards. He's like a rookie who
feels
is
very zone of interest. This section, I thought.
Yes, yeah, yes. It's about a guy who is just caught up in this system of dehumanizing people because they see them as a weapon. They see them as less than human, just on the face of it. And they are just enacting this policy to just kick them back and not do anything about it, even breaking their own laws in order to do that, because there is a process in Poland and in other countries, obviously, if someone is seeking asylum that you're supposed to do, but they want to just ignore that to get rid of the problem and push it under the rug. And the problem is actual human beings. That is really rough to watch. And then the third one, a little bit more hopeful, is about a rookie activist. She's a widower. She's a widow. Her husband died from COVID, and so that's around that time. I think it's 2021 is the setting, if I remember correctly. And she just gets caught up in this group and realizes, oh, there's so much more that I could do other than just giving medical aid and food and water to people. I could actually help them move, even though that is technically against the law too. And so it's that argument, like what are you supposed to do? What is your moral necessity? What is the right thing to do in a situation like this?
And I like that it shows all perspectives there, like the scene where her friend shows up and it's like, oh, I like donate to the right causes and I go to the protests, but like you're not using my car to bring a migrant across the thing. And it like shows the limits of people's liberalism or whatever you want to call it. Like it was, I appreciated it showing that, and also getting ahead of criticism that I'm going to lob at it probably, or I'm not going to, but I would have in the past maybe, where it's like, what's the point of making this movie? Like the people who need to see it never will, blah, blah, blah. There's a line in this movie where a character says like, they've been watching our stories for 10 years and nobody did anything, like commenting on the lack of progress that journalism is making and that art is making. And I appreciate that the movie is smart enough to like comment on it while also doing its damnedest. Like this movie is political. It is bold-faced, like message movie. Like it has a strong viewpoint that like this dehumanization is fucked up and wrong, and like look it in the face and face it. And it's bold, and this filmmaker has been like essentially exiled from her country for it and getting attacked by the right-wing government for it. And it's like this huge, it's just this amazing thing for someone to make this movie about their home country and be so critical of the situation. But like the situation, it is what it is. And it's some of the most harrowing shit I've ever seen in a movie. Like it's excruciatingly hard to watch. It's just like tragic, depressing, arguably misery porn of like babies starving and pregnant women being abused and like literally when we say they're being tossed over the border, we mean it literally. They're being thrown over the border at certain points. It's at gunpoint. You're watching parents promise their kids that things are going to be all right when you know that they aren't, and that they currently are not, and they are not guaranteed to be. It is so hard to watch, and it made me upset, and that's the whole point. And it just, every time I watch stuff like this, I'm like, yeah, liberal people like me will watch this and give it a great review and tell people to go see it. But the people who back these policies inhumanely and don't think about it beyond that will never see it. So that just makes me madder again. But that's who am I to lob that at? That's not a criticism I can lob at the movie or the filmmaker or anything like that. I just derailed you a lot. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Continue.
No, you didn't derail me. I was done explaining what the movie was. I think the fact that it has all those perspectives and it gives you a little bit of hope, but without the way that activist section plays out is so smart. It's so smart because it's about the little things that anybody can do. Just the little tiny things to help out in some way. And that can make all the difference.
The hopeful
entire
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, that's it. So just that little bit of hope is just enough, but it's not rose tinted about it because everything else that is going on around it, I think keeps it leveled at like, this is not the answer. Just because you can help out doesn't mean it's going to solve anything. There are systematic problems.
No, but you helping out will save that fucking guy's life. Like that's a human being. And like, it makes you feel that in a big way about the individual people making a difference among the like hopelessness of there never being a solution or to this problem. But like it's just some people don't understand that like politics have consequences and stuff like that. And then you like watch a movie like this where you're like, the dictator of Belarus, Lukashenko, is literally telling people, Syrian refugees, come here. And the only reason he's saying that is as a political wedge issue with Poland, so he can shunt them over there and make it their problem and, get sympathy out, to his side. It's just like all political bullshit that leads to like the dehumanization and people dying. And it's horrible. And it's a tough movie to recommend because it will make you upset. And like, again, that's the point. It should make you upset. But I guess if there was a criticism of the movie, the inhumanity on display, it becomes so overwhelming. It becomes almost cartoonish to me. But like, I'm not saying that stuff doesn't happen. I fully believe it does. But you're making a movie. You're like loading it with sledgehammers, narratives, and each one, it's just like, yeah, let's get the pregnant woman in there. Let's have her beaten. Let's get the kid in there. Let's have him have a bad thing happen. It's so overbearing at a certain point that it's overwhelming. And I guess I'm acknowledging that bothered me in terms of like, I didn't enjoy watching it. I'm still recommending the movie. I have no qualms about what they're doing. I just think I have to acknowledge it. Like, it's upsetting. It's very upsetting to watch. And one could argue if they wanted to be pedantic or something like, yeah, it's cherry picked, horrifying stories, blah, 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 blah. But that's what movies are. They have to make a point. You have to talk about it as political propaganda. Do you agree? Like, it is trying to be a thing that tells, I don't know, like the Polish government called it propaganda in the bad way, and I'm just like, propaganda can be good too. Like it's a counter
narrative.
Yeah, it's a counter narrative. Okay.
It's a counter narrative to the prevailing systemic narrative of the country and in certain ways of the entire world of just.
Well, yeah, I don't know if you've seen the latest polling here in the this is right before 2024 election where Trump could win again, and like the sentiment in America right now is very anti-immigrant, like 20 points higher than it was 4 years ago. Everyone's just like, deport everybody. So like we're heading to a dark place, and this is an important movie, I think, because it's one of those things where it's like, this is a very specific situation to Belarus and Poland and the EU refugee crisis. But as you said, pull back. It's a global crisis. Every country has their refugee crisis. And
pull back.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're right. Go ahead.
I'm saying pull back, and then also in this timeline, move forward in time to another crisis that's going on.
Yeah.
In that region, a year later after this.
Yes.
That epilogue is probably one of the most haunting things I think I've seen in a while.
Oh, just because of who they choose. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
It's we don't want to. I mean, it's hard to ruin a real life social issue in terms of
it's not.
spoilers.
But it's so. Yeah. But no, it's important to kind of have that
Yeah.
to have that perspective and to have that kind of come as a shock where you are spending an entire movie where two countries are saying, we can't do anything about these people, these specific people we
These
can't do
specific
anything
ones.
about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as soon as something else happens, they're like, no, come on in. Come on in. No,
Yes, it's
we'll
about
figure it out.
Yeah, it's about who in the
Yeah.
world gets saved and who doesn't, and it's sadly the case in our country too, where like
Yep.
the ones who are brown skinned or Muslim or whatever are the ones who, oh no, we can't help them, and then take in Ukrainians because they look more like us, I guess is the point. I have no idea. I don't understand racism, but that I think is what is going on. And sorry to the right-wing racists listening who are mad at this review. Stop listening to the pod. I don't care about you. But this is an important movie, and maybe you should watch it and change your perspective and become a fucking human and see that like we're all just people, man. Borders aren't real. This shit is fake. I mean, the inhumanity, man. The like, this movie shows Polish border guards. I believe it's the Polish ones, right? Who break a guy's glass thermos and then be like, "Hey, do you want some water?" And then watch him drink broken glass.
Oh.
Like, it's just like piling on this shit. But that is how it is. Like that, there are videos of American border guard doing the same shit here, and like, it's a really, I just really respect this filmmaker, Agnieszka Holland. Agnieszka Holland. I'm not going to pronounce her very Polish name correctly. I apologize, but she's she's been around for a long time.
Yep.
And I just think it's cool that it's just amazing that someone would make this movie about their home country and not give a fuck about like that they're gonna come after you hard, and they are. And from what I understand, that criticism like led to them losing their power in the government because they were fighting against her, and people are she's helping open eyes over there. So like, I just have immense respect for this filmmaker. It's a very powerful film that I found hard to watch in both ways. I think intentional and sometimes a little maybe just unintentional, but it's harrowing, punishing, affecting, relentless, all those things. And I think it's important. I think it's it's a 3-star movie for me, but it's a very important one, I think.
Yeah, I think it's all of those things, and I think it's also very well made, and having those different perspectives really opens it up to having a bigger discussion about this issue that's not just showing you what's going on with refugees and with migrants, but with also just how that kind of policy affects the border guard. He's not just he's a part of the system, but he doesn't necessarily want to be once he sees what it is, but he feels like he has to. And then the activists, all that stuff. The point is, I'm giving it 3.5. I think it's one of the better films of the year. It's really important. Definitely seek it out.
I'm just thinking about like the part where the way the movie shows that they aren't people, dehumanization, how that seeps into like the populace, like how the border guard's wife is just spouting the line about the migrants being weapons of war from Belarus that are going to kill us, which is exactly what Trump says about migrants here. It's just, the movie's very smart about how it disseminates all that information.
It does. It tells you so much, like very quickly, so you understand that situation entirely, without even without text, without just like flat out telling you this is the situation that's happening. It's through the dialogue and through the characters and through the actions.
And
so
it cleverly, even at the direct to appeal camera part, where like they tell you why the migrants are leaving, where they're coming from, and it's always like, ISIS has gonna kill me if I go back. Like, we see direct appeals to camera. Oh God, it's a tough movie because you're watching human rights get trampled over the entire time, which is the point again. So there you go, Green Border, the feel good movie of the year. Check it out. It's definitely worth seeking out. Jokes aside, let's move on to, I guess, the horror circle, the horror corner. We got 3 horror movies in a row, I guess, of various kinds. Let's talk about Russell Crowe in The Exorcism, which I wish this were good, man. It's like it's not quite halfway there, but it's like halfway to halfway there. Here's the trailer.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It's a job coming to me off the back of somebody else's tragedy.
Wow.
Bad, huh?
So what's with the stage? Have you forgotten what kind of movie we're making?
Set. Action.
Lord have mercy.
All kinds of messed up stuff happened when they were making movies like The Omen or The Exorcist. And the guy your dad replaced? Everything's cursed.
The setup for this movie, I'm gonna say, is awesome, but it needs explanation, because I think it's the most interesting. The meta aspects are most interesting. I'm sure, Mark, you're aware of who this filmmaker is. Did you look him up? I get to educate. I'm excited.
Oh yeah, you do. I'm curious.
That's why I think it's almost good. Not for any, the movie itself is a mess, but it's directed by Joshua John Miller, who is the son of the star of The Exorcist, Jason Miller, the priest. It's his son making this movie, which adds so much already to the idea of it. But it's a movie about a guy playing essentially the character that Jason Miller played, Father Damien Karras, or an actor who's about to deal with a girl's exorcism, but he's also dealing with his own personal demons in this movie. And is it about his alcoholism? Is it about his dead wife, or not dead wife or ex-wife? I don't remember. Is it about
She's dead.
She's dead, and therefore his ex, I guess. I was right on both counts. And then trying to reconnect with his daughter. It's all these things going on. But what I'm most interested in is the idea of the guy who's the son of the star of The Exorcist making a movie where they're essentially making The Exorcist and commenting on that process of making that movie, which is famously fraught and involved William Friedkin being abusive, in terms of verbally abusive, and basically, what's her name? Ellen Burstyn got flung across the room without knowing she was going to be, and injured her back. That's a lifelong injury. There's so much controversy surrounding that movie, and also trivia that it's cursed for various reasons. Someone actually died outside, blah blah blah. So this movie's without ever, I guess in the trailer they said it. I don't remember them saying The Exorcist in the movie, but I guess they probably do at some point. But the movie they're making is called The Georgetown Project, which, if you know anything about The Exorcist, you know it was shot there. And it's just without ever saying it, or so I thought. I guess they say it once. But they're very clearly making a movie about The Exorcist, including recreating the set. Oh, the full house of The Exorcist is recreated here correctly, as it would have been. And the way that the set is constructed, because we're watching a movie about a movie, so we see the actual facade of the house. It's such a cool visual, and the movie does jack shit with it. But I was so in up top, knowing that I was the guy's son made this. It's going to be a meta thing about, I don't know, his personal demons. I know Jason Miller was an alcoholic, I think. So I think it's a very personal thing. I was really interested, and that visual of the house made me think this guy's got the juice. And then eventually this movie just settles into the most perfunctory version of itself, where the guy making the horror movie, the guy making a possession movie gets possessed and then does all the possession shit you'd expect them to do. And it's very disappointing by the end. But before the end, I was enjoying it, including Adam Goldberg's playing a director who's an asshole, who's clearly was supposed to be the Friedkin of this movie, who's specifically prodding Russell Crowe, being you were abused by the clergy, right? Why don't you use that in this movie? But prodding him by being did the priest fuck you good enough, Russell? And making him act off of that. It's completely over the top and silly, but I don't know. There's a germ of an interesting idea here, adding that meta layer with the guy's son making a movie about the movie that looms large in his life. I think Jason Miller died very shortly after that, so it's the only movie we know him from. There's just so much interesting lore to talk about, and the movie doesn't get into any of that shit. It just kind of presents it as a setup and then does a perfunctory exorcism movie. So what did you think of it?
Yeah, I'm pretty much on that boat. I didn't know the backstory, but it's all there. I mean, you don't need to know. I was actually surprised they do reference The Exorcist outside of the movie, because I really thought they were trying to say this is a remake of The Exorcist that they're making.
It essentially is.
The
yes.
Georgetown Project.
Right.
The daughter saying something you're remaking that movie of all movies that you could remake. It's I really thought that's what was going on. Yeah. Then there's that reference to haunted sets and haunted productions, which is a really, really, really good idea for a movie. that, again, like you said, it does not take advantage of at all. It just
Yeah.
becomes
Yeah.
a possession movie with Russell Crowe's actor playing a priest, a tormented actor playing a tormented priest, becoming possessed by a demon and doing all of the stuff that you expect, all the contortionist stuff, all of the screaming in Latin, and all of this,
Yeah,
all of the
yelling
things
about
you
your mother
expect.
should have had an abortion, like typical shit I've
Yeah,
heard before in a horror movie.
everything,
Everything.
everything that you
All of it.
expect from this movie
Yeah.
happens, and it doesn't look into the filmmaking process at all. It doesn't take advantage of this idea of a haunted set. I would be fascinated to find out why a demon would want to haunt a movie set. Why?
Yeah.
Why? It's probably
Yeah.
better it doesn't ask why, but I'm just kind of curious at this point because I just want to know something that's a little different than what this movie does, because it just goes for it. Where by the end you have David Hyde Pierce's priest yelling prayers, and then other characters, including one dressed as a priest, yelling prayers at a demon who's just, hurling abuse at people. It is so cliched. It is so formulaic. It doesn't do anything with the germ of the idea that it has. And I think it is a neat idea. It's completely wasted on this material, which is so thin and doesn't know what to do with it except to just give you everything that you've already seen before.
How do they have that facade of the house look so cool and just not do a
Yeah.
single set piece?
Not a
with it?
single thing. He walks
part
down
of
the
it-
stairs. Like, isn't that like the big set piece? Is that
Yeah.
he's up in the thing, the director says something really nasty to him, and then he just walks down the stairs and into the living room of the set. And
and does a back
that's the big
break or
set
whatever.
piece. That's the set piece, is him walking. Like, there is so much you could do with that set. It's so elaborate. It is very cool looking. Like, when in the very opening scene is like,
Yeah.
you think you're watching a priest go into a house to go perform an exorcism, and then you realize, no, this is an actor reciting his lines.
Yeah, and even
not in
that
an
is-
actual house. It's
even the way
cool.
that's indebted to The Exorcist, with like the car
Yeah.
showing up, like it's just very much from the beginning, like this is The Exorcist. Do you get it? And I appreciate that, but yeah, it doesn't. It's crazy that it doesn't take advantage of anything. But
Yeah.
I think there's like an explanation, sort of, and it's that this was a movie that had a troubled production itself. In that,
think?
it started shooting in 2019, and it didn't get finished until last year due to COVID delays. So, and I think you can find interviews where the director says like studio interference is why it's bad now. Or at least like it doesn't follow through on the threads it puts in there, because it does not. Like, it's such a cool idea. And I love the idea of, a director exploiting an actor with traumatic stuff. Like, there's interesting ideas that just don't amount to anything, that like none of that has to do with anything. And this movie is also produced by Kevin Williamson of Scream fame, which I found very interesting. He's always been a very meta guy, and now he's actually made a movie about making a horror movie, which I guess Scream 3 is also
Scream 3, I think, isn't that?
You're right. Yeah. So yeah, this is a cool idea on its face, and I honestly would love to. Maybe I should try to interview him myself, or just find an interview with Jason, the guy who made it, to see what he was going for. Like, what are you trying to say? Like, was your dad fucked up by that movie, and like, do you blame him? Like, I want to know what he was trying to get at, because it just comes out as like, well, my dad was in The Exorcist, so I decided to make a movie about making The Exorcist. Where, what if my dad got possessed? Like, it just doesn't amount to anything. It just it's another exorcism movie with all the exorcism tropes by the end, and all the cool ideas just fall away, including the coolest set. Yeah, the opening is so cool. I was really excited for it after that. I was like, this is actually going to be okay.
I'm annoyed
Yeah.
I did not make that connection between the material and the filmmaker and the filmmaker's father, because I think Jason Miller gives like one of the best screen performances of all time in The Exorcist. So it's annoying that I didn't make that connection.
It's so interesting though, because like I did a lot of deep dive research on The Exorcist at one point for the horror podcast, and like Jason Miller was like a theater actor who William Friedkin saw in a play and just plucked and was like, "You're my guy," and the studio was like, "What the fuck? No, we do not want
You
that."
can't do that.
And he gives one of the I agree, one of the greatest.
It's one of the
performances.
best of ever. Like, I'm dead serious. Like, up there with like Passion of Joan of Arc. That kind of that level of performance. I think he's that good.
And that's so cool, because he's not a traditional movie actor. And like, I would love to see the rest of his credits, because I feel like he didn't have a long run after that. Like, it really was.
The Exorcist
like,
3. He appears in Exorcist 3. So
that's right. That's a great movie too. But different, very different. Yeah, Exorcism for me, I'll give it 2 stars for the effort, but it's not good.
I don't think there's much effort after the setup. I'm giving it 1.5.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's too bad because it's such a good idea. It's such a good idea.
Really, really great idea. And yeah, this filmmaker, Joshua John Miller, the only other thing he's done is write. He's written a few things, including a movie I really hated in 2015 called The Final Girls. That's like a horror comedy about horror tropes that I thought was terrible. I'm not sure if Mark reviewed it on markreviewsmovies.com, but I'm assuming if he did, he would not like it because he's got good taste. So there you have it. The Final Girls is streaming now if you care. Anyway, let's move on to The Devil's Bath, a Shudder movie that will be streaming, I think, next week, and might be enjoying a limited release now. Here's the trailer for The Devil's Bath from the filmmakers behind Goodnight Mommy and that Riley Keough movie, The Lodge. Here's the trailer. I don't think I've ever seen a movie, Mark, where the end credits or the movie ends and it has on-screen text. I don't think I've ever experienced something where I was like, I wish I knew that before. Like, I feel like it would have helped the experience of the movie to kind of know what it was getting at in that regard. Because otherwise, it's just like a slow burn that it tells you what it's doing right up top, I feel like. And it just kind of slowly gets there. And I hate when a movie does that, where they like show you a little telegraphing of what's going to happen and then just does it very slowly and methodically. These filmmakers are filmmakers I have never connected with. People like Goodnight Mommy, I did not care for it. I don't think anybody liked The Lodge. I agree with that. Did you? You liked it?
Oh my God. Like The Lodge. Yeah.
Very interesting. So like these guys, these filmmakers, I think it's a female and a male, or I don't know if that matters. Yeah, I don't know if they're a wife and a husband and wife, or a no, it's a nephew and his aunt, which is so fucking weird. Anyway, I just haven't liked their movies because they all seem like, I don't know. They don't hold up to scrutiny. They always are about some big twist, and it just feels like misanthropy, and it doesn't actually, I never find them actually affecting. So I'm interested to know why you didn't like this one, because you liked The Lodge.
I like The Lodge. I like Goodnight Mommy too.
Okay.
I like both of those, and it's mostly those two I mostly like because it is, when it does get to the awful cruelty that is going on in those movies, it hit me. I think it works. I think the slow burn in those two work. It doesn't here though.
Yeah, something's wrong with the slow simmer here. Yeah.
It's off, and I think it's because it is tackling some really big ideas about religion and about community and about how religion can define a community so much that people are willing to kill, basically, in order to fulfill this ideal about the afterlife. That's basically what it's getting at. I don't think it's saying too much, but because you think you learn it kind of at the start,
right,
where it opens with a woman, a woman throwing a baby off a waterfall and then being executed, but being surprisingly happy about the fact that she's going to die by execution because she gets a chance to confess before she dies.
Yeah.
It's really a chilling scene. I was not expecting it to go. I mean, I didn't think they were going to show all that they show, and
it's patient with, and it like doesn't like hold your hand through it too. It's like, this happened, and now here's her head. Like, good luck, you figure it out. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Here it is. And then you have another woman who is just gets married, and she realizes that her husband doesn't have any interest in her for some reason. We don't know why. It doesn't matter. But because she cannot fulfill her wifely duties, as it would be called, like in that kind of community, she feels lost because she doesn't know what her life is anymore. And so you just watch her kind of spiral into, I guess, depression and madness, and she wants to find a way out of it. And because she becomes connected to this woman who murdered a baby, you start to realize, oh, she's gonna do something.
It's so tedious because you fucking know it's gonna happen. It tells you. It tells you immediately, and then it just does it.
And that's fine. I guess that could be fine. It doesn't work because I didn't get a sense of that character until near the end, when you realize, like, oh, this is what you're actually trying to say about it, is that this community is so suffocating. Like the mother-in-law telling her, like, you have to clean, you have to cook, you have to do everything. You have to do everything right for your husband. and the husband's not doing anything for her. Put it mildly, I guess, if you want to put it that way. Like, it feels off. The stakes of what's going on in that marriage versus where it goes, I think that might be part of the disconnect. Like,
yes. Yeah, well,
husband won't have sex with her, and therefore she goes to where she goes to. I didn't buy that.
Yeah, I guess for me, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's it. I didn't buy that.
It's like the suffocating domesticity thing and being told to do what to do by everybody, including her husband, his mother. Don't forget to pray while you cook or your husband won't like the food. Like shit like that. It's out of control, the things she's being told to do. And then like she's wasting away in bed, so the goats are ill and unattended to. But yeah, you're just like, everything's just slowly unfolding. You can I just didn't appreciate it. Not that I was like, I didn't buy it. I was just like, I know every beat of this that's going to happen. I'm watching a woman become depressed, as you said, like suffocated by her life, the monotony, the praying for a baby that won't come or whatever. And I don't want to get, I guess I don't want to say what the thing is because I really like the premise and like what I guess the reveal is. I don't know what you want to call it.
Yeah.
Like what the movie's about, the historical nature of it. Like instead of like the people did something. God, how do we talk about this?
I don't know how we talk about it. Yeah.
People did something back then in order to avoid going to hell. There was like a loophole to get to doing something else. It's so fucking stupid to talk about it.
It's a paradox. It's one of the great paradoxes of like a religion based around the afterlife. I guess that's the only thing, because like if you're really just trying to live for some heaven, like wouldn't you think there's a shortcut? I guess that's the best way.
Yeah.
And so if you get, I think there's a lot going on here in terms of like theology and psychology and sociology. I don't think the movie really can address it that much because it's trying to just give you that atmosphere. And I don't think
like,
it.
I don't know if the supernaturally approach of like she's seeing the woman type of thing works for this movie. Like it just doesn't jibe with the historical drama, psychological parts that I was actually interested in, I guess. Like it just all feels a little muddled or something. But I love the general idea, and I wish the movie delivered on it a little better because it's so dark and it's so one of the most fucked up things I could think of, and they didn't really do it justice. I want to say my joke, but my joke gives away the premise, so I can't.
Yeah, it's too bad.
It's too bad.
And I would love, you know what I want to talk about where we can't is the ending, because the ending is really good.
Yeah.
When, because I said that I think the build up to the cruelty and Goodnight Mommy and the Lodge are what make it effective. I think the cruelty is so extreme in this one by the end.
It was pretty crazy.
In such detail that it's, I'm like, this is rough, and it's making me reconsider. Did I actually dislike everything before this? Like, yes, I did, because it's not really saying, it's not building up to that moment as well as it could have, and it's not discussing the ideas that it's trying to discuss until the very, very, very end with what happens, and then with that little text coda, and it's a shame because I think this is
the text coda
really
annoyed me. I don't know if it was like I needed to hear it before, but like I feel like I got to the text coda and I'm like, yeah, I know, I just saw that. Like,
we just exactly. That's what's annoying about it. It's like you just told that story. Do you not trust your audience to get the story you're trying to tell? Because maybe that's a problem with the filmmakers, not communicating that well enough that you need to add that at the end.
Yeah, I guess that my note says end title card. Yeah, I know. I watched the movie. Yeah, weird experience. It's halfway there. Again, it's a quarter way there. It's halfway to halfway there for me. A lot of quarter way there movies today. I just don't jive with these filmmakers, like, and their style of like, what if things were terrible suddenly, I guess is their vibe. I don't know. In theory, I love that, but the execution of their movies always leaves me wanting. And this one was because the movie has a classic like horror movie opening scene of like, here's a character that will not be involved in the rest of the movie having something happen to her, and then I wonder if that will happen again to our character, and then it just, the way it goes about it is just not smart. But there's some cool stuff, including the thing on the poster with the thread in the back of her neck. Like that shit was gross too. There's just cool stuff. There's some cool ideas in this movie, but 2 stars for me for The Devil's Bath.
Yeah, and I do like what the filmmakers have done in the past, at least with their bigger stuff, and I also found this kind of not effective, so 2 stars for me too. So I guess worst of both worlds. You don't like what they do, you're not going to like this. You do like what they do, and whatever.
You can't win with this one.
Cannot.
I don't know. There are people that do like it, so I always want to say, check it out if you're into like misanthropic, depressing horror movies. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's just so tedious, and it doesn't earn what I think is like a cool ending and idea. The idea is good, and I don't think that the movie is. So that's my issue. Let's talk about Humanist Vampire Seeking Consensual Suicidal Person, I believe is the title. Is that correct? Yes. Here's the trailer.
Consenting
suicidal person. Here is the trailer.
Il n'y a plus de pochette.
Ouais, je sais, ta mère, il va tantôt.
C'est pas vrai que c'est moi qui vais chasser pour tout le monde pendant 200 ans.
Pourquoi c'est moi qui est allé lundi?
Bravo.
Mais c'est la compassion de votre fille qui est stimulée quand elle voit des gens mourir. Pas sa faim.
L'ego, ça se développe. Tu vas voir, tu vas finir par aimer ça.
J'ai pas besoin de suivre du monde pour savoir que j'aimerais pas ça.
T'es tu peut-être pas Sacha, mais t'es manges pareil.
T'as juste à choisir ton préféré. Je vais te l'accrocher puis je vais te montrer comment le vider. Non, merci, j'ai pas faim.
This is a movie that I know you didn't like it, so you might disagree, but like I thought this was a one-note premise that maintained itself the entire time, and I thought the title accurately reflects not only the premise but also the tone. It's funny in that, like, I don't know if the overly verboseness is the funny part of it, but it is funny in that same way. Humanist vampire seeking consenting suicidal person. It's cute. It's just charming. It's just charming enough to get over the finish line for me. And it does a great job of evoking that mood from that title. It has like a very Danny Elfman vibe from the score, which I really liked. It's a movie about a vampire girl who has empathy for humans and doesn't want to eat them, which is a novel premise, and I'm sure people have done it before. But I thought this was a good take on it, and had really funny, like, vampire-y lore moments, like how was it it must be in her blood joke about her being good at piano because she's never touched the piano before, but suddenly she's good. Like how that would work, that made me laugh. The wrong parts of her brain lighting up. She's compassionate, not a hungry vampire. She empathizes with everyone and everything. Her parents bickering over who's going to go hunting, just classic parent arguments about what's for dinner, but they're talking about who's going to go hunt and kill a human. Like, obviously this could be tedious to somebody, but I don't know. I found it to be cute, and the nature of someone calling a suicide hotline as a vampire to like find someone to kill because they already want to die. It's like a funny idea. And the movie, I think, lives up to that, even though it kind of just like, I wouldn't say it paints itself into a corner. It just kind of, the movie just plays out the only way it can. It's a cute little movie about a girl who doesn't want to kill a guy and the guy who's suicidal who wants to please her. And it just, I don't know. I found it to be a cute, satisfying little indie comedy that didn't overstay its welcome or anything. What did you think about it? Why did it annoy you or whatever?
I don't think it really goes for the idea of the premise of, I don't know. It starts off kind of funny with the whole family dynamic, and then it just focuses.
The dialogue up top got me. I was like, at least this feels lived in a way.
It did. At the very top, I was into it because I was interested in how this was going to go down, and I liked the characters, and I liked like the aunt and the cousin and all them trying to pressure her, and the parent, like the father being very, it's supportive of the fact she doesn't want to kill a human, even though it's not practical for a vampire not to do that, but still kind of like trying to help her out. It's a nice little family dynamic in a very messed up situation. I thought that kind of worked, but then as soon as you introduce just the idea that she's going to be hanging out with this guy who wants to die but can't quite bring himself to kill himself, and then takes him on like an adventure through the night to go fulfill his dying wish, which he doesn't even know what it is, which is a funny character note at least. But I don't know. It doesn't really. I'm missing something here, I think, because I think the tone of it is trying to be too cool and too removed that I didn't find the character dynamic between those two main characters to be that funny or that insightful about it. And I think just having them kind of run off and do these adventures with trying to beat up the bully or to get back at all the school administrators who were taking things out
Oh
on
yeah,
him.
he thinks he's gonna die, so he tries to do all this stuff
Yeah,
before
so
he dies.
he thinks he's going to go out in a blaze of glory of just resolving all
Yeah.
the issues that he has in his life. I don't know. It's just there's something off about it that you have this really promising start with that setup, and then I don't think it really does anything with it. I really don't. I think it's just kind of going all over the place of trying to figure out what it wants to be. And by the time it does figure out what it wants to be, the movie's over because right before the credits is where it kind of hackles that idea of the title. I think the title is more provocative than anything that's going on here too, and that's a bit of a problem. Because the title's great. The title does give you that sense of mood and of what it's going to be about. And then the movie's not really diving into those ideas.
I like it as a piece of like outcast cinema about not fitting in. Like it works in that regard too, as a metaphor or whatever.
Yeah.
There's the thing, she's like suicidal herself because of her ethics. She's like, well, if I die, that means more people will live, so I should die. Like I just think like all those little grace notes make it work, and I feel like it thought about all this stuff in a way that just worked for me. And I like what you were describing as tedious or whatever, him going around doing all the things, his dying wishes. I thought that was cute and funny. And yeah, it's no great shakes. It's nothing special. It was one of those things where festival movie I skipped at a festival 6 months ago, and catching up with it now, having no expectations at all, I was like, yeah, that's a classic 3-star pass festival movie. Like good enough. We'll never think about it again. Already kind of forgot it, but it was good enough. And if you think if the title intrigues you, humanist person seeking consenting suicidal person, if that makes you laugh, and the idea that this teenage girl is actually 68 years old, if that makes you laugh too, maybe this movie will make you laugh. But you've probably seen similar fare, and it's but there's a great scene where they listen to a song on the record player. I really like that scene too. It's better. I don't know. It's better than Mark thinks it is, but it's not.
I don't think it is. I really think it is.
It's just like it's a little wry, maybe a little dry.
A little dry, a little too cool for school, a
little too cool for school. That's fine. It's a classic 3-star pass for me.
Okay, 2 stars for me. I could not get
fair
I
enough.
know I couldn't get into it.
All right, well there you have it. That was 7 movies. Go to markreviewsmovies.com for what was it? 2 more this week?
4 more.
4 more, of course. How dare I undersell
Sorry.
you? Next week there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that I can see on Mark's website. That I've already seen one of at Sundance that I probably have to watch again. Oh God, Mark and I have to. I don't know if you are looking forward to the Kevin Costner, but I am actively dreading it based on all that I've heard.
Well, guess as far as I know, we're gonna have to see it when it comes out.
Oh, I already was, because I just didn't care to even look for a screening. But I
asked.
Oh God.
Yeah, we'll talk off mic.
I was out of town for it. It did happen here.
That's nice, because we're apparently not in Chicago. They hate us apparently.
Oh God. I'm seeing it literally 10 a.m. on Friday, I think. So it may have to record a little late next week, but it'll be I'll be ready for action for Horizon, because I'm seeing Quiet Place on Thursday, because I'm skipping the screening on Wednesday the night before to see it Thursday at 3. But this is all planning.
We're in the same boat there.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, this is all inside baseball stuff.
This is all inside baseball, off mic stuff that we're doing on mic for no good reason. Listen to Alien Ant Farm now. Give us ratings and reviews. And thanks for listening. Goodbye.
The show starts in 1...
I don't think I can go on.
Jordan, sir. Shut up. Hush.